Facebook revolutionized how we connect with each other, but as it plans to launch a global currency, will it also change the way that we spend? I'm Femi Oke.
I'm Malika Bilal. Today we take a look at Libra, Facebook's plan to rewire the global economy. Send your thoughts via Twitter and YouTube.
"15 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook from a college dormitory in the US state of Massachusetts. It's now the world's ubiquitous social media network, and it's planning to launch a digital currency next year.
Libra is being touted as a cryptocurrency that can be bought by anyone worldwide and then used to make instant payments through mobile phones, much like sending a text message. Facebook and its partners say Libra will, quote, empower billions of people, including those who do not have bank accounts. Have a look.
Introducing Libra, a new global currency designed for the digital world, backed by the belief that money should be fast for Ope in Lagos, simple for Saul's family business in Manila, and secure for Betsabe when sending money home to Mexico City. It's powered by blockchain, making it safe and accessible, no matter who you are or where you're from.
Facebook is partnering with a number of private corporations, including Mastercard, Vodafone and Uber, to form the Libra Association, which will oversee the currency. Libra will be pegged to a reserve of real currencies, such as the US dollar, to ensure its value remains stable.
But while the association says it hopes to create better, cheaper, and open financial services, critics have some reservations. Even Facebook's co-founder, Chris Hughes, has called Libra both brilliant and frightening. In a newspaper op-ed, he urged, quote, exhaustive scrutiny of the forthcoming currency by government regulators.
Joining us to discuss Libra is DANTE DISPARTE. He is head of policy and communications at the Libra Association, which will govern the planned new currency.
TANVI RATNA is a policy advisor and engineer who manages blockchain projects in India. She is an India-US fellow at New America. She joins us from Frankfurt, Germany.
And Charles Arthur is a former technology editor at The Guardian newspaper. He's author of Cyber Wars, Hacks That Shocked the Business World. He joins us from just outside of Saffron Walden in the UK. Hello, everybody. It's good to have you. So much to talk about, and just a stream show to do it in. Where should we start, Malika?
We are going to start with our community because, of course, there are a lot of questions and some excitement, some enthusiasm, so I want to dip right into that. This is Moya Wachena, who says, this is a significant game changer. Imagine with a single click, Facebook will be able to add nearly 1 billion people to have a bank account. The question will be the security from hackers and government legalities and regulations, which we will talk about a little bit later in the show, but we can't dive in too deep without understanding how it works. So this person's excited. How would this work?
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be on the show today. First and foremost, this is not Facebook's project. I think that's the first order of business, and what has been announced, clearly dominated the headlines over the last week, is the formation of a new association, an open source technology, and a governance structure that really makes us as close to a global good and a public good as possible. Underpinning that is a public blockchain, and on top of that would ride a reserve-backed digital asset or a cryptocurrency, the Libra, that would facilitate to payments and money what the internet has facilitated for communications and information sharing. So it's an exciting opportunity to do things with finance and payments that the world has yet not been able to do for more than 1.7 billion people.
Charles, that's quite some idea to bring a new virtual currency to the world. When you first heard about it, your reaction was what?
My reaction was, it sounds really interesting. It also sounds quite scary, because the way that currencies have traditionally worked and been effective is that they're controlled by governments, they're backed by governments. I think there's a really big question, which I might as well ask Dante now, which is what happens if the Libra Association goes bust? Can it go bust? Can it go out of business? If it goes out of business, what happens to all the money, if we can describe it that way, all the Libra that people are holding? Does it become worthless? Does it take off and have its own value?
Charles, I've counted 6 questions so far. That's amazing. Take a breath. Dante, go for it.
Well, so Charles is asking, I think, important questions, which clearly the formation of this project has anticipated and endeavors to answer as well. At one level, the Libra is different from other cryptocurrencies in the sense that it is asset-backed and it is reserve-backed. So, and that is not fractional. So for every Libra that is issued,
so my mum watches this sometimes, and so she would not understand what you just said.
So think of it this way.
Yeah.
So for every Libra that is issued, there is a value behind it that is ensuring that that Libra is always backed 1-to-1 with a real asset. So, and if your mom's watching the show, imagine a world today. We spend $715 billion as the projected remittance flows around the world. In the United States, you have a diaspora community of around 50 million people who are sending that money back to their home countries, but at a rate between 7 and 10% on average and much higher in certain remittance corridors. With the advent of Libra, you could envision that money not only arriving near instantaneously the way a message would, but arriving with 100%, right? So there's no death by 1,000 cuts along the way. It's an incredible opportunity to put money back in the hands of people.
So you mentioned remittances, and I'm glad because we got a video comment from someone. So this person works at Sure Remit, and they deal with remittances using cryptocurrency, send airtime back home faster and cheaper than popular remittance providers. So they shared with us their thoughts on what this might mean. This is Laulu Samuel B. He's the director of that company. And here's what he told the stream.
Africans and others in the developing world face very unreasonable restrictions sending and receiving value across the world. And this is in some part due to the overregulation of money transfers, specifically to and from these markets. And that is why we're forced to create the Sure Remit cryptocurrency out of Africa in the first place. Libra is also now intending to make a difference by creating a single digital currency that users within the network can choose to accept or spend in lieu of their local currency. If they can pull this off at scale, it could finally liberate a lot of people that have been limited by the financial establishment from participating in the global economy in any meaningful way so far. So that could be very significant.
So you could hear the excitement at the end of his comment there. Breaking this down seems to be what his view is. This might allow the unbanked, as they're called, people who do not have access to these financial institutions, to be banked. Is that the idea?
That's the crux of it. If you think about the comparison again back to telephony and data and information sharing, only those who are so fortunate to have either won the national birth lottery or the zip code lottery were the ones that had access to the fixed line telephony system. Banking has reached a point of diminishing returns as well. There's 1.7 billion people on the world without a bank. There's an equal number who are underbanked, and in part because traditional brick and mortar finance has failed to reach these people. So I think he's no longer alone in the fight for financial inclusion.
TANVI, I had a look through Dante's Twitter feed, and I found the association, the Libra Association. So I'm going to show you here. I know you've looked at them. All of these various companies all coming together. When you see them, what does that make you feel? Are you reassured that these companies are teaming up, or is there anything in there that you're thinking, that gives me pause for thought?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've looked in quite some detail already at Libra coin, its papers, and also comparing it to other blockchain systems. I'm really coming in with some bad news, so don't bring me in if you're just getting the party started. And I would say overall, Facebook coin is a classic case of everything that sounds right but looks wrong. And a lot of the devil is in the details in this case. And I think users as a whole are, compared to other blockchain systems, not compared to banks, they're probably worse off in Libra coin than they are in other blockchains. And there's 4 major reasons for those. And a lot of that is coming from detailed discussion. So I'm going to dive right into that. Firstly, the Libra coin is neither a blockchain nor a cryptocurrency, even though it claims to be. In technical terms, it's a set of signed ledger states. It's not really a backlinked, immutable chain of blocks, the way we've traditionally come to understand blockchain. So what happens in this case is users are not nodes of this blockchain. Usually blockchain is seen as a democratizing sort of force, right? So the people who participate in payments, they also make up the network and they own parts of the network. There are nodes in this network. But in the case of Facebook Coin, all the nodes are corporations, like you rightly showed in that picture. And people are essentially paying into the system to buy tokens from these corporations. So that's the first concern that usually comes to mind when I look at the design of Facebook Coin. Secondly, users currently don't have a say in the governance of Libra Coin that is right now under these 27 partners. But even in the future, based on the technical documents that they have released, it's very unlikely that users will have a say in its governance because the way the technical details are set up is probably going to be at maximum a few hundred people who get to validate
so
the
TANVI,
blockchain.
I'm going to stop you there, just pause you there for a moment, because you brought up two big things, and also your audio is a little hard to understand. So Dante, you go ahead.
Well, let me just add to that, I think, some points that are important to clarify. First, when you think about this being a technology and a project in which no one company is going it alone, this is a very, very counterintuitive and enlightened design when it comes to traditional Silicon Valley work or large corporation work. A lot of the R&D is effectively being put in the hands of these 28 initial founding organizations.
Right.
In there you have groups like Mastercard, Visa, Uber, Lyft, PayPal, eBay, you have Mercado Pago, you have Vodafone. We have social impact partners like Mercy Corps, Kiva, Women's World Banking, for example.
Yeah.
These are nonprofit organizations that have been put in a structure with the same governance, the same authorities, and the same vote as all of the other organizations, including the largest companies in that mix. And that's just the beginning. By the time the currency launches, we'll have about 100 organizations, and then this whole ecosystem will continue to develop.
All right, Charles, go ahead.
I've got to say, Dante, you didn't answer my original question, which was, can the Libra Association go bust? What happens to all the money if you do?
Yeah. So there, Charles, thank you for bringing that up again. So if the Libra as an organization, as an association is new, we're in the midst of setting up a charter that would be governed, as I had mentioned before, among a very democratic process with the organizations that are a part of it. And because it's a reserved-backed cryptocurrency or digital currency one-to-one, you could envision a black swan scenario in which any type of catastrophic loss in that system has an opportunity to actually return a tangible asset back to the user. When you contrast that to most digital currencies on the planet, there is no reserve function. There is no security function of tapping some of the largest, best-run organizations and most trusted brands in the world.
Sure, that's obvious.
So there are a number of scenarios that you could contemplate in this, in which trust in the technology, trust in the network partners, and trust, candidly, in the reserve function really does make this a digital currency in every form.
Okay, so then the question is...
So Charles and TANVI, I hear you both with so many more questions, but I'm going to let our community overrule you just a bit because they also have so many things to add. So this is a series of tweets that I'm going to share because they're all on the same wavelength. Jeremy A says, I have a hard time trusting Facebook these days. Another person writes, and this is Christine, who says, after Cambridge Analytica political meddling scandal, I wouldn't trust Facebook with anything, let alone the currency. Teacher Dude, that's his handle. He says, if we can't trust Facebook with our data, what makes them think we'll trust them with our money? At the very core of any currency is trust, and Facebook is lousy at retaining that. So at the very top of the show, Dante, you laid out that this is not Facebook's project per se. There's an organization, there's an association who's now behind this. But you hear the mistrust and the skepticism from people online. What would you tell them?
Well, I would say a couple of things. I think one, the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is a global survey of trust in institutions, both public and private, says that Facebook as an organization is not alone in a decline of trust. And in so many ways, the construct of this project, whether you trust Facebook or not, it has really created a competitive ecosystem. You now have 27 of the world's largest organizations competing for financial inclusion in an open source manner and in a democratic manner. When was the last time the private sector led an initiative this ambitious that specifically targeted combating poverty, financial inclusion, and alleviating the types of pernicious issues we all talk about, but no one has really done much to solve for? Facebook has incubated this, and candidly, no other firm on the planet could have, in part because it's a 2.7 billion strong social network.
So you incubated it, but you're not owning it. What's the difference between incubation and owning it? Because there's this distance that you're saying it's a partnership, but you also incubated it, so you're leading.
Well, so and to be clear, when you speak of me or Facebook in the first person, I work for the Association for Libra. But so the goal here, especially when you think of how blockchains are structured, every party on that network effectively has exactly the same power, the same vote, the same structure. And Facebook has effectively ceded all of that, including the R&D around the Libra blockchain, to this association, so that it is in effect a public good.
All right, so TANVI and Charles, hold tight for a second. I just want to share this with you. This is from the Libra.org, and it says here, the Libra mission. I'm curious about what you think about this. It's a simple global currency and financial infrastructure that empowers billions of people, reinvent money, transform the global economy so people everywhere can live better lives. TANVI, anything from this new currency, still yet to make its debut, that you think, what a great idea?
Yes, so I think I do commend DANTE, and I do agree that when it comes to the private sector, this is probably a very ambitious initiative, and we haven't seen this kind of a decentralized initiative from the private sector, but it is still a blockchain of the corporates. And when people have concerns about data, I think that's a very real concern. And I would bring up points directly from Facebook's own material on Libra coin. So they have said that they are not going to identify, they're not going to tag identifiers to transactions in their blockchain. So it's not like they can survey all your transactions. But what's happening is the point at which users enter the blockchain is through something called wallets. And Facebook is launching the Calibra wallet. And there they have clearly said that it will be regulatory compliant. And what regulators are pushing for is complete KYC. So it's what regulators want is that the user is identified, the transaction is identified. And so if the Facebook's own Calibra wallet is regulatory compliant, then it's very likely that all the transactions we do through Libra coin are going to be identified. And it's very easy to then link it to, say, activity on my Facebook account. It's very easy to link it to other activity I do in social media. And we could very likely have a sort of surveillance system.
Well, and let me, if I can, TANVI, you bring up a couple of very important points. One of them is that Facebook, of course, is competing again, in equal footing with other companies that are payment providers and others that are already in this network. Facebook would be competing through the Calibra offering. The Calibra company, which is a separate subsidiary of Facebook, is going to be registered, to my knowledge, is going to be registered and regulated as a financial entity. And that there would be a very clear firewall between payment information and financial information from social media information. What cat videos you might like on Facebook, I think, has no pretext for payment information. And again, just reflect back on the types of companies that every person who's so fortunate, like you or I might be, to have a credit card or a debit card or a bank account, relies on a couple of logos on the bottom left-hand corner of those cards called Visa, Mastercard. There's a payment universality and ubiquity and security and trust that providers and users of this new system can rely upon. But now we have the opportunity to stretch that to the billions of people who have no such luck.
Charles, go ahead.
I think there's a bigger question. There are two really big linked questions. So the fact that Facebook is doing this, Facebook is actually a much bigger part than you're letting on, DANTE, because Facebook wants to be the method by which people are identified. It wants to do, and it says this on the last page, the last paragraph, the last page of its white paper. It says actually that it wants to do digital identity globally. That's what Facebook actually wants to do with this. It wants to be the way that you know who the customer is. Well, and that's really important as well. Hang on, let me finish.
Yeah, please.
It's really important because somewhere between 10 and 20% of the world's wealth has been stolen. It's been hidden in bank accounts by people who have stolen it, dictators, autocrats who have stolen it from their citizens and put it away in offshore bank accounts. Now, I think that's a crime, and I think that it would be great if there was a way to prevent that happening. So I can see that that would be a huge benefit. But one has to say, Facebook is really looking to insert itself into this. And I think it's disingenuous for you to say Facebook is just one of many. Facebook wants to be absolutely central to this.
Well, maybe, maybe not. But Charles brings up another really, really, really important point. on the planet, just like the number of underbanked and unbanked. We have about 1 billion people who have no such thing as an ID in a compliant, universally acceptable form, and that too is an abomination. The advent of a global digital currency that is as stable as this one, with the type of ubiquity and the type of network partners, I think also forces the world's hands and forces important conversations that weren't happening until we launched this project all around the world around inclusion, financial opportunity, and by default, because of KYC requirements. Financial de-risking has pushed billions of people on the margins of finance. So we've gone so far. Because of the fear that one person might do something wrong, billions of people are left on the sidelines of finance. And I think this creates an incentive to resolve for the global identity crisis. And TANVI, I know you're very familiar with what India has done with the Aadhaar identity system and how technologies like blockchain start to enable that. Because this is an ecosystem, there's an opportunity to pull in the right actors and the right players, and we're doing it in the light of day and in the light of sunlight. The next time you see me and my colleagues, it's before the halls of power all over the world having this very conversation.
And yet there was so much criticism about the Aadhaar card and your identity being linked to a card. We did a show on it. Our viewers can go check that out. But I want to pivot us just a little bit to this news. Zimbabwe outlaws use of US dollar and other foreign currencies. This came out June 25th. And we got someone who is speaking to a hypothetical scenario, keeping this in mind. He is behind m-pesa Africa, where you can make payments to 180 million mobile money users across the continent of Africa. He talked to us about a scenario that might happen. This is Dare, and here's what he told the stream.
Let's take the example of a civil servant in Zimbabwe nearing retirement with savings digitally stored on a mobile money account. And let's imagine he's worrying about the value of the Zimbabwean dollars and therefore wants to exchange this for Libra as a way to safeguard his saving. That Libra exists to create this possibility should be celebrated. And also, this is actually something that's possible in Zimbabwe using the payment rails of m-pesa Africa, and it could be done in 30 other markets, and over 180 million people currently connected to the m-pesa Africa hub could do this. But the big if here is that will government allow it?
So Zimbabwe banned foreign currency. And his question is, would the government then allow something like this? Would they see it as a threat? Would they see it as foreign currency? So
that's such a powerful observation, because it's from that lens, not the prism of privilege, that we have to see what Libra can do for the world. I would like to expect, and I think that the combined power and the combined voice of this type of network, and hopefully many others, allows this to be, it's not a zero-sum game. You could drive and improve financial inclusion without eroding international norms around risk management and financial controls, and you could also do it in a manner that helps advance opportunities for people. 50% of the world's adult population are exposed to hyperinflation in their currencies. Think about the collapse of Venezuela's economy. In no small measure, there was no flight to safety that was digitally native or accessible, and so you really cause incalculable human suffering as a result of that. So we're having ongoing conversations with regulators around the world, leaders and governments around the world, to ensure that this becomes an add-on to modern finance and an add-on to global financial stability, and not a competitor or a detractor to it.
Is it a battle that you're having, or is it just an education process? Because I'm just looking here at your Libra white paper, which is quite light. I mean, you can read it in about 15 minutes. There's not much in there. Is there a lot more going on behind the scenes, or are you just waiting to see how little regulation you need to actually launch Libra?
Well, if you think of it, Libra is not a speculative instrument at all. There's no gain from the currency itself, unlike, again, other cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin specifically, which has become, I think, compared to digital gold. There's an incredible opportunity here to produce an asset on the planet that is stable. So there's no speculation in the currency whatsoever. It's about market making and pulling people into market opportunities.
All right, TANVI, I hear you, and Charles, I hear you. We're at the end of the show. It just shows that we probably need a week. But I'm not sure we'd still have viewers by the end of the week to talk about Libra. So thank you, TANVI. Thank you, Charles. And our online community, what do they make of this conversation?
I think there's still some skepticism, but also people are excited about the potential.
All right, Dante, we'll be following Libra with great interest.
Happy to come back.
Thank you for joining us. Malika and I will see you online, always at AJ Stream, online on Twitter. Thanks for watching. See you next time.